Tomatoes. They originated in South America in countries like Ecuador and Peru. They were brought to Europe by the Spanish in the 16th century and have traveled the globe ever since. They come in different sizes, different shapes, but one thing is for sure: people love them. So today we're looking at 5 tomato dishes from 5 countries to see how the world has interpreted this one red fruit.
Tomatoes. Tomato. Tomato.
Hey Beryl, my name is Mohammed and I am from the Metro Detroit area here in Michigan, which is located in the United States. And my family and I are from Bangladesh. And the dish that I want to share with you is called Tomato Tok. The word tok literally translates to sour, so the curry means tomato sour.
They're everywhere.
I don't know whether to call this a curry or stew because curry is an English word, so we don't necessarily describe our dishes as curries in Bengali or even other parts of South Asia for that matter. For tomato tok, the primary flavors are sweet, spicy, and sour. I love this dish because it's quick, it's simple and easy, and it hits all of the taste buds. I love the combination of sour and spicy, where we say khatta meeta. The combination of sweet and sour is so common.
I feel like in America, tomatoes can be hit or miss, but usually I feel like cherry tomatoes are safe. So I like cooking with them, even though you have to cut a lot more, but it's worth it. Ooh, these taste really good.
The dish is very popular across Bangladesh as well as some parts of India. There's several variations of this dish that may not even use tomatoes and may resort to other tart fruit such as sour plums, raw green olives, or even raw green mangoes. I have fond memories of this dish coming home from Friday prayers at the mosque, and my mom would have freshly made curries waiting for us at the table. It was one of the first Bangladeshi recipes I learned to make because of the simplicity of it, that you can taste each ingredient that goes into it.
This smells really good and it looks really pretty. The turmeric with the tomatoes has this yellow-red combination that is very appetizing. Yum, 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 yum.
I feel like tomatoes don't get a lot of the love outside of being eaten as a sauce or salad because they're just not as flavorful when they're eaten raw in my opinion. But something happens when you roast them in fire or when you dry them in the sun or stew them. Their chemical composition changes and a new flavor profile is formed. And I believe that's what happens when you stew them and simmer them for a long time. The acidity and the natural sweetness just concentrates. And adding in that garlic and cilantro and bird's eye chili really complements those flavor notes very well.
The dish is called Tomato Tok, and every time I say it, I can't help but thinking about TikTok trends that like this dish is Tomato Talk on the tomato side of TikTok. Like book talk, but for tomatoes. This is Tomato Tok.
I think people should try this dish because we shouldn't just limit ourselves to pasta sauce and salsa and salads. It's a flavor explosion, and I think when it's served alongside other traditional Bangladeshi dishes, such as even something simple as a dal, it's almost like a palate cleanser because it's just so light and delicate. So I'm really excited for you to try this dish and let me know how you like it.
This really reminds me of a dish that my mother-in-law in India makes, and every time she makes it when I'm over there, I'm like, oh, mommy, I love this, what is it? And she's like, oh, it's just like a tomato soup, like don't get too excited about this. But I feel like it's this. I think this is what she makes. Like the flavor's a little bit different, but this is a good tomato soup. Whoa. The cherry tomatoes still have a little bit of structure in them, so when you eat it, they like pop a little bit in your mouth. The acid is really nice in here, the spices are really nice. It's got a little bit of heat, but not too much. It's mostly just really comforting. This doesn't taste like a tomato soup in the way I think about grilled cheese and tomato soup together, that creamy Campbell's tomato soup. This tastes more like tomatoes as a tomato in a liquid form. It's very vegetable forward and you can taste all the spices and the acid that went into this. This soup to me tastes more like the sum of its parts rather than some esoteric end concept. Like tomato soup in America to me tastes like ketchup soup, whereas this tastes like tomatoes. This was super quick to make. The ingredients are very easy to have on hand. I think if you're somebody who likes tomatoes, this Tomato Tok is the dish for you. Continuing on that tomato path, I would like to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Nature's Sweet. They sell some of the most delicious tomatoes on the market. October is Fair Trade Month, and all of Nature's Sweet tomatoes are Fair Trade certified. Fair Trade products support safe working conditions, a sustainable livelihood, community development funds, and environmental protections. And Nature's Sweet has one of the strongest Fair Trade programs, celebrating their workers that make their tomatoes just as sweet. By participating in Fair Trade, it results not only in better farming practices, but a better quality tomato. So if you're gonna buy tomatoes this month after watching this episode, celebrate Fair Trade Month by buying Nature's Sweet cherubs to do all your cooking.
Hi Beryl, my name is Virgile and I come from Rougail Island, which is a French island in the Indian Ocean. Our food reflects our history and cultural mix influenced by French, Indian, Chinese, Madagascar and African cuisine. Today, I want to introduce you to Rougail tomates, or tomato rougail. We use the word rougail for many of our side dishes.
So this recipe actually, instead of a lime like I'm using, wants a macroot lime, but you cannot get those in America. I'll show you what they look like. They look pretty cool. That's macroot lime, and they've got like these ridges on the outside, and their flavor is different, but for argument's sake, and I talked to Virgile about this, I'm just gonna use a normal lime because that's what I have access to, and that's what a lot of the world has access to. But I still think it's gonna turn out really well.
Tomato rougail is made of thinly chopped fresh tomato, but my mom always used to grate the tomato instead of chopping it, to be quicker and giving a more saucy texture. Every family has its specific recipe, but in mine we use pestle and mortar to crush some burnt chilies, salt and kaffir lime zest. Kaffir lime is really the key ingredient that makes its flavor so unique. Then we mix the paste in the tomato, we add a bit of oil and some chopped chives, boom, it's done. Tomato rougail is amazing because it can be added on the top of any other dish that would be a bit plain without it. You can use it to enhance some plain rice with some meats, such as smoked sausages, which are very typical of our island, or with a fried egg, or some slice of avocado. We also like to use it on top of fried rice or fried noodles that we cook on an Asian style due to the Chinese influence. You can also put it on some bread. It goes well with everything. Tomato rougail is the most classic of all rougail, and is very common in a classic traditional Rougail meal. Rice, meat or fish curry, beans, greens and rougail. This dish really reminds me of my mom food on the weekend. Also, it reminds me of big family gathering at my aunt's and uncle's place and 5-hour-long lunch on the Sunday with the elders telling family stories. You really should try this if you like the spicy food or if you don't know the taste of the kaffir lime. Also, it's very quick and you might be able to pair it with your local food. Maybe it would create a new, unique, super tasty dish.
This was really simple to make, and the smell in my kitchen with all of that fresh lime zest. Oh, it's like a salsa, like a really limey, fresh salsa. And there's a really nice kick in it from the chilies. I'm gonna have this as this kind of breakfasty nosh. I put lime zest in the rice as well. That's delicious. This was a really simple and quick recipe to make. The only thing I think that you have to worry about is grating the tomato because your fingers can get stuck there on the graters, which is why I'm safety first girl over here and I use a special glove. But if you don't have one, you just have to be careful of that. I like when I get to learn that sometimes it's easier to make something yourself than to buy it at the store. This is case in point. Between walking to the grocery store, picking it out, waiting in line, walking back, I honestly think it was faster to make this myself. So that's pretty cool. And it tastes like vibrant and fresh, a little bit spicy. The tomato is really nice and chunky and sweet. And I think this is a good way to use big tomatoes, which sometimes don't have the best flavors and textures, but in this case, the bigger tomato worked really well. Mixed with the lime zest and the chili and the salt and the chives, it just made something pretty spectacular. An A+ tomato dish. Did you all know that I have a new show on PBS Food? It's about two people swapping recipes from their culture to learn a little bit more about one another.
This was going to be very new to me.
This is the scary part.
This is the scary part.
I'm a part of it. We had a whole lot of fun using a lot of you subscribers. I hope that you check it out. The link is in the description.
Hi, I'm Pavithra and I'm from Kerala, a state in south of India. The tomato dish I would like to highlight today is called Kalyana Madhura Thakkali Pachadi, which literally translates to wedding special sweet tomato chutney. This dish is made with tomatoes and jaggery or sugar, unlike regular tomato dishes, which are savory or spicy.
Oh, that was like exactly a cup. Wow, I couldn't have chopped that any more perfectly.
This dish is usually served in weddings along with rice or biryani, and you can have it with rotis or bread too. And if you're someone with a sweet tooth, you can have it as a dessert as well. This dish is unique because it emphasizes on the fruitiness of tomato. It has the sweetness of jaggery or sugar and the tanginess of tomatoes and a slight crunch from the nuts. This dish is typically served in the elaborate wedding feasts of certain communities in the state of Tamil Nadu, where I have my roots in. Though the recipe I'm sharing here is that of tomatoes, this can also be made with grapes, bananas, or even pineapples.
I think it's cool that this really is the first tomato dish where the tomato is being used as a fruit and not really like a vegetable. I like that it's a sweet dish. It reminds me of the tomato jam that I made in the first tomato episode, but I think the flavor of this one is going to be different because of the cardamom powder and the ghee. Yum. Okay.
This dish was introduced to me by my mother, who absolutely loves it. My grandmother would cook it for her once in a while, and as she cooked, I would sit right next to her and observe it, and that's how I learned this recipe.
This turned out like candy. I will say I left it on there. I like looked away for 1 second and it's a little bit burnt, but I think it's gonna be okay because it's just the sugar that got a little bit too caramelized.
If you notice the recipe, it has only a handful of ingredients, and except for tomatoes, the rest of the ingredients are used to either enhance the flavor of tomatoes or complement it. There is no doubt that tomato is the star of this dish. This dish has a delightful balance of flavors, which makes it a dish that you definitely must try. Unlike in regular cooking where tomato is treated as a vegetable, this dish is a must try if you want to devour it as a fruit.
I can smell the nuts and the ghee. It smells good. Oh, this already solidified. Okay. It's hot and yet it's already solidified. This is good. The tomatoes are so sweet. It tastes like candy, like tomato candy. It's got kind of like a taffy texture in your mouth. It's chewy and silky and sticky. Having the nuts and raisins on top is good because it gives a little bit of crunch. Otherwise, it would just be really soft. I think it's so cool how tomatoes in this have been transformed into not only something sweet, but something like sticky. Because tomatoes in themselves are more crunchy than anything. It's really interesting watching this whole dish cook down. And I turned my eyes for honestly 1 second and all of the sugar started to caramelize. Ooh, I might have burned this a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. So if you're gonna make this, you have to keep a watchful eye over it. It's sweet, but not too sweet. I think with rice, this would be really good. This is so crazy. Like, I could get this all up in 1 spoonful. Ooh, now it's stuck to my spoon. I don't know if that's appetizing, but this is really delicious. It would just be really hard to serve to people, because you wouldn't be able to serve it. Wow, tomatoes became this. How surprising. I'm gonna chew for the next 10 minutes now.
Hey Beryl, hey everyone. My name is Bien and I live in Belgium. The tomato dish I want to tell you about today is a Belgian classic called Tomaat Garnaal or tomato crevettes. It's basically a tomato where there's been cut off a little slice at the bottom.
I'm defrosting the shrimp with water. Look at how teeny tiny this is. It's the size of my thumbnail. Okay. Part 1 done.
So you can stand up your tomato on the plate and it doesn't wobble over. And then you cut out the top, scoop out the seeds, and fill it with shrimp salad.
I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get this off. How do I? Ugh. How do I empty it? What do I do? I need help. Ugh. It's the knot in the middle. Okay, there we go. I'm not doing a great job, but I'm trying my darndest.
For this shrimp salad, you need little gray shrimp, or as we call it in Flemish, grijze garnaal. They are much smaller than the pink shrimp, and they are already pre-shelled.
Apparently the trick was just using a spoon. Now it's so much easier. I just gotta get this middle piece out. Boom, with a spoon. I get made fun of all the time for using spoons when I shouldn't be using spoons, but there I was using a knife when I should have been using a spoon. Spoon supremacy.
Here you can also buy them at the fishmonger to shell them yourself, but it's a labor of love. So I would recommend buy the pre-shelled.
I have really strong opinions about what I think is the best mayonnaise because I'm a huge mayonnaise lover, but let me know in the comments, what do you think is the best brand of mayonnaise out there? I did a whole mayonnaise episode in case you're a mayo lover like me, and in it I did a blind mayo taste test, which really shouldn't be missed, and I will link it in the description. But just so you know, my favorite mayonnaise is Kewpie. Yum.
The recipe I always make is a recipe of my grandma. She always peeled her shrimp herself. She woke up very early in the morning and bought them at the fish auction and peeled them herself. For lunch, it's usually 1 tomato. For dinner, it can be 2. Hope you enjoy. Bye-bye.
This dish was supposed to have French fries, and I have regrets that I don't have French fries with it. But here they are, my tomatoes stuffed with tiny shrimps. It kind of looks to me like some sort of magazine spread from a 70s magazine. I don't really know how I'm gonna eat this either. It's like a sandwich without any of the fun parts. This is a big bite. Here's the thing. The shrimp salad is good. The little shrimps are good. They're a little bit sweet. The mayonnaise is really nice. The parsley is a nice addition to it. The problem is actually with the tomato. In America especially, even though it's tomato season right now, big tomatoes tend to give nothing. And this tomato is giving me literally nothing. It is texture and structure, but there's no flavor to it. And so with the fact that I'm just eating it plain like this, and it doesn't taste like anything. Like, I don't understand. Sometimes when you eat something and it tastes like, that tomato tasted like nothing. Ginormous tomatoes like this, unless you're buying the fancy $6 per tomato heirloom tomatoes when you buy the big ones, I think it's really a gamble because this one's really sad. And because of that, it's making the dish kind of lame because there's no flavor. All I'm eating is shrimp salad with like texture. I could see how this could be good though. Like, I like the shrimp salad, but it's just a tomato was being lazy. Actually, it's not the tomato's fault. It's the industrial complex in America. Sorry, tomato. You're just a product of the economy and the community that you're raised in. The flavor of the tomato aside, I do still have great difficulty hollowing out a tomato. I've had to do it before in this channel, and I also struggled then as I struggled today. I have this tool, but it's for zucchinis mostly. I didn't never realize how heavy and thick the tomato core is and how deep it goes down. Like, a tomato does not want to let go of its innards, which is interesting because they're so soft and squishy. I just hacked at it with a knife for a while, and then I realized that spoon was the best method.
Oh, spoon. That was it.
I feel upset that the dish isn't getting what I think it deserves to get because the main star of it is just not given its best foot forward. If I was to do this again, I would probably invest in a better tomato. I would make sure that it went out of my way because the tomato is such an important element of this dish. That's what I would do differently.
Hi, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Chelsey, and we live in Houston, Texas.
The dish we'd like to talk about is stewed tomatoes.
This is a dish that combines cooked tomatoes with Southern-style American biscuits. The recipe we have leans towards a sweeter dish, but this could easily be made savory if you cut back on the sugar or add spices.
The best way to describe this dish is as a fruit bread pudding. We like it because it rides the line between sweet and savory, and it's a very surprising combination.
We discovered this unique side dish while on vacation in Virginia at an otherwise very standard Southern restaurant. I was cautious at first, but then went back for seconds and then had to find the recipe. Now making this recipe at home reminds us of our time together in Virginia and the fun memories we made.
We've enjoyed cooking this dish multiple times, experimenting with other breads and different quality tomatoes, even seeing if using fresh or canned made a difference. We recommend getting the best quality you can, but even cheap canned tomatoes were good.
The tomato shines in this dish as a bright acidic pop of flavor, which contrasts with the savory, buttery biscuits.
I don't know what I'm looking at. This is very America.
Cooking the tomatoes for a little while helps to tone down the overall acidity and gives them a more complex flavor.
We think people should try this dish because it's a unique way to use up extra tomatoes and older biscuits or even stale bread, and can be customized to savory or sweet tastes. We recommend the sweet version especially. Enjoy.
Sometimes America comes through with recipes that make me go, This one made me go, Biscuits baked in a sweet tomato base. All right. I mean, we do love a biscuit though here. It is very sweet. I'm surprised by how sweet the tomatoes are. The biscuits that are kind of wet inside the wet tomatoes give it a sense of a pudding, like a bread pudding texture, but not quite, because then when you're eating the tomatoes, you're kind of thrown off. I'm just gonna have the biscuit alone here. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I think the tomatoes are just really sweet for me. This is definitely an interesting take on a tomato dish because of all the dishes, even the Indian one, this dish makes the tomato taste the most like fruit. This tastes like a fruity jam type of dish that I'm eating. The tomato is coming across so sweet and fruit forward that it's cool that a tomato can do that. I know that I added sugar, but the sugar is bringing out a lot of that natural sweetness of the tomato, okay? Here's my final thought about the dish. I think that if you take away the biscuit from inside the tomato, I think the tomatoes cooked down with the sugar and the butter are interesting, and you could do a lot of really interesting things, like bake that into a pie. You would get a beautiful sweet tomato pie that I think would be glorious. It was just the biscuits. The biscuits were not for me. Inside the tomatoes. They weren't for me, but they could be for somebody else because I am not the albeit one almighty God of food who sits behind a large curtain and yells at you that you can't go home because you don't have the right shoes on. I'm just saying that just because I don't like something doesn't mean you won't like something, and I'm not even saying I didn't like this, I'm just saying it wasn't entirely for me. With that being said, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I'm leaving you with our other tomato episode, and I'm leaving you with a playlist all about fruits since, as you know, tomato is a fruit. Until then, I will see you next week.